welcome to Energy Top Up, the show packed with practical ways to build resilience and boost your inner strength and confidence. This week, we are bringing sunshine into our lives by looking at social responsibility. Now, that often is thought to be environmentally friendly, but our environment, yes, of course, consists of the global planet and the world, but it also consists of our communities and our own lives. We're your hosts and trainers. I'm chartered psychologist Dr. Audrey Tang, and with me is the wonderful award-winning parent and family coach, Sharon Lawton.
Hi everybody, and thanks for that lovely intro, Audrey. Now everybody, have you considered that everything that we do impacts on something or someone else? In our world, we have lots of people that talk about rights, and what we forget is that with rights come responsibility. We have a right to feel safe, but we also have a responsibility to create that safety in the world as well. And we also want to create that world that is considerate of others. So it's all about us making sure that we play our part of the responsibility to create that. Now, we may not realize it, but our reactions and our behavior have such an impact on those around us. A casual smile can really make somebody's day. We might not think about leaving our discarded ice cream paper on the grass at the local recreational area would make much of a difference. But what if everybody thought that way? Today's show is all about how we can positively affect ourselves, our environment, our community, and those around us, and also how that can affect us. Isn't that right, Audrey?
Spot on, Sharon, and this leads me on to the warm-up so perfectly, because we're going to start off with really thinking about exercise. The reason why exercise is so great for us is because it does keep our bodies healthy. I know a lot of us think of it as a chore, but realistically, if you do a few squats, that can help keep our knees and our hip joints a little bit healthier when we're getting in and out of chairs. If you remember to stretch, it can stop us being so creaky. So what I want us to do is to do a warm-up, which is going to take us through tensing and stretching our pairs of muscles and thinking about what our body does for us. Because exactly as Sharon has said, a lot of the time we might criticize our bodies, we might say things that have an impact on us, even if we don't realize it. So we keep telling ourselves, oh, you're too fat, or oh, you're too creaky, or oh, I wish I could have stayed up later. But realistically, our body is doing so much for us. So this little warm-up will take us through parts of our bodies, and we're going to thank them. So first of all, let's start with tensing and opening, tensing and opening our eyes, squeezing and releasing. And whilst we're doing that, I want you to think about how amazing our eyes are. They help us see our loved ones. They help us read, watch television, look at the beautiful things out of the window or in the garden. So closing and opening our eyes. Now, what about our shoulders? Tensing and relaxing, tensing and relaxing. And think about how our shoulders really help us with our posture. They can make us feel and look confident. They can help us shoulder literally heavy weights if we're lifting something. That can be so incredible. And then our hands, tensing and releasing. But also think about what amazing things our hands allow us to do. Our hands allow us to touch, to hug, to feel and relax. And now I want you to think about stretching and twisting your waist, just turning from the waist. And again, with our waist and our stomachs, yes, we maybe enjoy food a little too much that we might indulge, but food is such a lovely way of bringing us together, especially if we've been baking or cooking ourselves. And then our legs. I want you to just move your knees around, shake your legs out. And what I want you to do is thank them, because they've got us from A to B. It's so important that we actually appreciate how great our bodies are, because our bodies are exactly what gets us through the day. It gets us doing whatever it is we want us to do. So start appreciating our bodies rather than criticizing them. And what I challenge you to do after this is maybe go out for a jog, but thinking about being positive to our environment, turn it into a plog. And that is picking up litter. All you need to do is bring your black bin liner and some plastic gloves. And as you're going on your jog, you can pick up the litter, which also gives you a little bit of a squat to warm up those joints, and carry on enjoying the weather, enjoying the vitamin D, and making yourself feel great. And on that, let's pass you over to Sharon for our first exercise.
Thanks, Audrey. That's absolutely fantastic. You know, I was over at my local recreational area on Friday. I met a friend for a social distance drink, and I was quite shocked actually as we left, because we met about 4 o'clock, and as I left around about 6 o'clock, the amount of sort of litter that was left lying around, it was quite shocking really. So yeah, I think I'll have to take my gloves and do a little bit of what you've just demonstrated there. That would be fantastic. Now, did you know that obviously from what Audrey has been saying and what we were talking about on the show today, that our environment around us has a direct impact on how you feel and your levels of stress? Have you ever even thought about that? Making our environment as organised as we can and as positive as we can really can make a difference. Remember that part of the brain that I spoke about in last week's show, the reptilian activating system? It focuses our attention on what is around us and what we see the most. So if you want to be productive, if you want to be focused in your work, having an organised work area is absolutely essential. So have a go at keeping the flat surfaces around you clear. Maybe have an inbox or somewhere to put all of your incoming papers and files. When your papers come in, sort them each day and sort them into 3 piles. Ditch, delegate, or do it. That's taking action. When those papers come in, sort them every day. But whatever you do, don't keep them on top of your desk in an ever-mounting pile that gets higher and higher. Now, I also might recommend having a positive working environment, surrounding yourself, maybe having a motivational quote or a photograph of a loved one or a meaningful place on your screensaver, or maybe on a wall or in a frame around your working space. Set your intentions, a goal, a to-do list, so that you know what you need to achieve each day. That will keep your mind focused. But you know what? The same goes for our personal lives too. We need to be decluttering our homes, and because our living space is really important to our state of mind. Now, I don't know about you, but I think I know everyone, certainly in my family and my friendship group, who tends to have that one dreaded cupboard or that one drawer. In fact, I've got one drawer in my office that everything gets shoved into. And maybe you don't quite know where to start. So here's a great question to start you on your decluttering. Take everything out of that cupboard or that drawer, and as you go through it bit by bit, just say to yourself, if I were emigrating to another country, would I take this thing with me? And that can really help us to keep focused. So start today. And start small. Begin with clearing up the stuff in your work area, then move on to other aspects of your life. Get organised. Remember, sometimes that might also mean that we have to spring clean some of our relationships too, because the people that we surround ourselves with can either be what I tend to call either radiators or hoovers. Radiators radiate energy, positivity. We feel good when we're around them. But I'm afraid those hoovers, and we all know who they are, suck and drain any positivity in us when we're around them. So before I hand back to Audrey, I just wanted to share with you a fantastic wellness win that was shared by one of our viewers. Now, this video is from John, and John is the senior vice president actually of a London architectural firm, WATG. And he's involved in a brainchild called Green Block. Now, that's all about improving London's greenery. And what John said was, when he sent this in, is that I'm always banging on about the fact that we need to sort of make our green spaces more visible in our cities. But this is something that I can do in my own backyard. Change starts at home. Certainly does, John. Over to you, John. Let's see your video. So thanks so much, John. So inspiring, and certainly has given me a few tips and ideas too. So back to you, Audrey. What did you think?
Thank you. Well, both your tips and what John's saying as well really do inspire me, in the sense that I think our environment makes such a difference to how we're living. With cleaning an environment, just cleaning my desk, it makes me feel a lot better. And similarly, just watching that living wall take place in the garden, I love to think I could go out, sit and have a morning cup of tea and just look at that beautiful environment. And it makes such a difference. It starts our day off well.
Absolutely.
Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about how our environment has changed recently. A lot of us are working from home. And if we are doing that, we do need to be quite mindful of how we actually separate work and home life. And one of the issues that has been cropping up a lot is something called Zoom fatigue. And that's what I wanted to deal with now. Now, it's great that Zoom and other online platforms allow us to stay connected. They allow us to do our work. But if we continue forcing ourselves unnaturally in a way that maybe causes us more headaches and more stress and exhausts us more, then that can be a problem. And this is what seems to be happening with Zoom. Now, I've got some tips to think about avoiding Zoom fatigue and actually using these online platforms as a tool, especially if you're going to work from home for a longer term or going to introduce it into your organizations. And the first is, do not plan back-to-back meetings. Do not schedule back-to-back meetings. As a coach and as a consultant, if I'm meeting clients, I always leave a minimum of half an hour in between meetings, because one might run over, and certainly I need a break so that I can come back to the second person fully engaged and fully able to support. So that's the same thing with your teams. But if teams are from different places, also ask them, have you got a meeting that you're running from? And then try and negotiate the times accordingly. So don't go back to back. The next question you need to ask yourself, does it need to be on video? Now, I say that because sometimes, and we used to hate telephone calls because we preferred to text, but now we're always having online meeting calls. But does it need to be on video? We have to get changed for that. We have to dress for that. So question mark that. If it can be done on a phone group or a text or an email, maybe consider that as an option. Third is, you do need to respect other people when you're on a Zoom or an online call. Because I know we joke about how you only need to dress from, the top half down. If you did pan down, both Sharon and I are completely dressed in this show. But respect each other because you're still at work. And on an online call working from home, you are inviting other people into your homes. Therefore, dress in the way that would be respectful to go in and how you'd expect them to come to you as well. Point number 4, working from home means life is okay. If you are worried about barking dogs or anything like that, maybe apologize beforehand, but it is okay, it is accepted. And finally, make sure you get some off-screen time. Not only is that constant blue light not healthy for us, but it can actually keep us awake at night. And if you want to have a look at some tips to help you sleep better, watch last week's show. Sharon gives you brilliant the top tips for that. But really, get some off-screen time, get away from that, get outside, get into the open air, and actually have a home environment that is productive to work as it is to live in. And on that, it's back to Sharon for our second exercise.
Oh, thanks so much, Audrey. Now, I just want to use this little bit of segment to talk about self-esteem and how important it is, because as I said at the top of the show, it's really important to consider not just our environment, but also the way that people behave towards us, making an impact on our feelings and how we feel. Now, often we might look at other people and wish we were as confident as them, or wish that we had better resilience. And that's really what these shows have been all about. But let's think about self-esteem and confidence a little bit more. Self-esteem and confidence are a feeling, and feelings are invisible. We make a judgment on what we see in somebody else, their body language, how they hold themselves. So the thing about self-esteem is you can't see self-esteem, but self-esteem is there every time you look in the mirror. You can't hear self-esteem, but self-esteem is that little voice in our heads that tells us whether we're good enough or not. And you can't touch self-esteem, but self-esteem is there in our body language, in the way that we hold ourselves, on whether we're able to hold eye contact or not. So it has a direct impact on everything we do, and that's why it's so important for us to be able to know tips and ideas to be able to build self-esteem and resilience. Because we are born a blank canvas. We are born completely neutral, and every interaction and experience that we have starts to form the person that we are, starts to help us to think about what we think about ourselves, our sense of self-worth. Which brings me nicely to our cycle of feelings and behaviour board here. So if self-esteem and confidence is how I think about myself, then how I think about myself has an impact on how I behave towards other people in social environments, but also when I meet people every day. It also has an impact on how I'm able to deal with conflict and stress. Then how I behave towards others has an impact on how others behave towards me. So if I am polite and respectful to people, chances are I've got much more a chance of somebody being respectful and nice back. And then how others behave towards me reinforces how I think about myself. Now, the brain is an amazing thing, of course it is, but it can only hold so much information. And what it does is it filters out the information that it believes isn't important. And when it comes to self-worth and self-esteem, what it does is it filters in all of the information and all of the evidence it needs to reinforce what it believes about itself. And so basically, if I think that I'm a likable person, and that I'm successful, and that I'm sociable, my brain will look for and gather the evidence to reinforce that. However, if I think the opposite, that I'm not very good, or I'm clumsy, or nobody likes me very much, my brain will collect all of that evidence and say, see, you're not very nice. Everybody else got an invite to that Zoom meeting or to that socially distanced activity in the park, and you didn't. And so therefore, that has a knock-on effect then to how I behave again, how others behave towards me. And so the cycle continues, and it can be a negative cycle or a positive cycle, but change has to start with us. Now, when it comes to children, they don't have that cognitive understanding just yet. And so to break the cycle for children, it's here. How we behave towards our children will make an impact. But I truly believe that actually you never know who you're meeting in a day. So our behaviour really does matter. Here's a little example. So two examples. First example is, if I'm in a supermarket and I see someone that I know really well, and I give them a little wave across the supermarket aisle, and that person just looks straight through me and blanks me basically. Depending on how I think and feel about myself, I might think, how rude. How rude. I know they've seen me, they've just blanked me. Well, that's it now. I'm not going to bother to give them a lift next time I see them on the way to the station, or I'm not going to bother to offer to pick up their children, or whatever it might be. However, if I thought differently about myself, if I was a different emotional state, if my self-esteem was more stable, I might think, oh, that's odd. That's a really unusual thing to do. I wonder if they're okay. Maybe I'll just drop them a little text later and see how they are. The point of this is the situation was the same, but depending on how I think and feel about myself, my reaction is different. So we have to take responsibility to build our self-esteem and also others. Now, my second example, I'm going to need some help. Audrey, I wonder if you can give me a hand on this one.
I would love to, Sharon.
Fantastic. Now, I've got a little story which I'm going to read, and hopefully you've got a piece of paper there. And maybe, brilliant. Maybe the viewers out there, if you would like to join in on this, grab yourself a piece of paper, and we can do this exercise together. Now, I want you to imagine that the piece of paper is a person, and I'm going to read out this self-esteem story. And every time you hear me say something that you think negatively would affect this person's self-esteem, I want you to either fold it or rip a little piece off. It's entirely up to you. And let's see how impactful this story is on our imaginary person's self-esteem. Let's call this person, Jenny. Apologies to any Jennies out there. This is a story about an imaginary Jenny and her self-esteem. She had it when she was born, but it was invisible. Her parents and other people who saw it were not aware of it. As the day passed, when she was a baby, and her mother and father and grandparents held her and sang to her and carried her around, her self-esteem grew strong and a little bit bigger every day. Then one day, when she was about 3 years old, she and her brother were playing with some building blocks, and she accidentally knocked them to the floor. "Oh, you're so stupid," said her older brother. "Why don't you just play with dollies instead?" She was upset and ran to her mother, who was busy sorting the bills. She just said, "Oh, don't be such a wimp. Come on, he didn't mean it." At this stage, she decided that perhaps she must be stupid. Then when she was 4, she was playing outside with her brother and his new fire engine. Her grandmother walked past and said, "Goodness, you shouldn't be playing in that dirt in a nice clean dress. Go inside and put some clean clothes on, and don't let me catch you getting dirty like that again." She walked in dejectedly, and her grandmother called out, "And pull your dress down. You don't want other people to see your underwear." When she was 6, Jenny asked her mother to explain a word that she'd heard in the playground. Her mother got really angry and said, "Don't you ever use that word again." She decided to see if her brother knew what that word was. He was laying on his bed upstairs reading a magazine. And when she asked him about the word, he just laughed at her and said, "You're too young to know about that. Now just get lost." As she grew older, more and more pieces folded and ripped off her self-esteem. Every time she did something she thought was wrong, she thought, "Oh no, I better not try that again. I'll only get it wrong." People said she was a very shy girl. Sometimes pieces would be added to her self-esteem when she did well in class, and when the teacher said good things about her, or when her parents told her that she was smart and good. Now, once in Jenny's class, they had been asked to write essays on what sort of careers they wanted to have. Jenny decided she wanted to be an airline pilot. She went home and talked to her parents about it. They laughed. "Girls can't be airline pilots," they said. "You have to be really clever to be one of those. Think of all the wasted training when you get a career. You need to be a mother. And besides, you have to be really smart. You wouldn't make the grades." After a while, when she grew further, and she was round about 12 or 13, her body was quite mature and the boys in class teased her about it. She was so embarrassed. She couldn't see why she just couldn't be like the other girls in class. And for a while, she started to hate her body. She didn't look like the actresses in the movies and the models in the magazines. She was just hopeless. By the time Jenny became an adult, her self-esteem was quite damaged. She had learned a lot about how to improve it, but there were some pieces that seemed to have fallen off for good. How big's your self-esteem sheet? How folded is it?
It is tiny. It is probably about 1.5 inches by 1 inch.
Wow, wow. So it just goes to show, doesn't it, that, you know, the impact of our words, sometimes we don't realise, and the behaviour. So Jenny obviously is a made-up person, and it could easily have been a John or a Dave or a Mark. It doesn't matter. The gender doesn't matter in this. All we need to be thinking about is that how I think and feel about myself affects my behaviour towards others impacts how I behave towards others, which impacts how they behave towards me. And so, what can you do this week to start to make an impact on others and also yourself? Back to you, Audrey.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Now, I'm actually going to pick up a couple of props to help me with the next bit, because your story has really inspired me. Now, when it comes to building up our self-esteem, all the exercises we do to build resilience actually help. Because as you can see with that folded piece of paper, once it's folded, it sometimes is quite hard to unfold without the creases. But if you think of the self as that blank sheet, that blank canvas, but all of the exercises that we teach over the weeks, all of the things that you can do to boost your self-esteem keeps adding and adding and adding and making that blank canvas stronger and stronger. Not only is it slightly harder to fold, but if you fold it, it simply springs back again. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we can not only boost our self-esteem, but boost the self-esteem of others. And this is a little task I like to give in my training sessions. I ask people to text somebody who they're pleased to have in their life and tell them exactly why they're so happy to have them in their life and that they're grateful. But I always have to tell them, make sure you say you're in a training session and the trainer has suggested you do this, because otherwise I will almost guarantee you'll get a text back saying, well, you started drinking early today, haven't you? And we don't want that. But then I have to ask the question, why is the world like that? Why can't we just text a friend and say, you know what, you're awesome, you are? I always think relationships are like clothing. When you have found something that suits you, that makes you look good, that shows you off to the best, you take it, you look after it, you cherish it. And that's the same as friends. If you find people who bring out the very best in you, you look after them, you nurture them, you cherish them. And so this is my challenge for you today. The first thing is, I want you to text or call or write to or email somebody. Text a friend that you are happy to have in your life, and I want you to thank them for being in your life, and I want you to tell them why you're so grateful. Tell them why they mean so much to you. Because so often, if you're used to hearing, oh, thank you for this, thank you for that, another thank you doesn't necessarily go in as much as being told, oh, that cake you baked me was so delicious and so lovely. Or maybe, oh, you took time to actually speak to me. That was important. So thanking them is one thing, but telling them why specifically is quite another. So that is my challenge for you today. And you never know, chances are you will get something right back that tells you exactly why they're so grateful to have you in their life. So now continuing with looking after our environment, being positive and really enjoying what and who we have around us, it's on to Kirsty's homeschool. And this is a very special episode this week. In this particular segment, it's Rosie who is presenting a way of recycling. Over to you, Rosie.
Hello Audrey, today it's just me, Rosie. We're learning about recycling. It's really important to do recycling. It's because we don't want to hurt animals. And we're using some orange, a can, and then we're going to get some seeds. But first we put some soil in. And then we water it down. Then we put some seeds in. Put the empty bottle.
Which mummy has cut up for you?
And what my mummy cut it up for me.
Now what are you doing?
We have to do is just put some soil in, and then you wash it down. And you put a little hole in, and then you put the seed in, and then you put some soil under it. And then if you want to plant another one, you can.
A little bit more water.
And then you put a little bit more water in.
And then close the lid.
And then close the lid.
And wait for it to grow.
And then wait for it to grow. Have had some fun learning with me today.
See you next week.
See you next week. Bye bye.
Thank you so much, Rosie and Kirsty there, I could hear in the background. Such a great idea. You can recycle old plastic bottles and grow things in them. But the best part about doing a family project, very much like the earlier video we had from John, it allows us to talk to our children, talk to people around us about recycling, about the environment, and it opens the way to huge discussions and really important ones. So it's a great piece and something that you can do yourselves. But that is all we have time for now. We are pretty much at the end of the show. So it is over to Sharon for her cool down and her top tips.
Thanks so much, Audrey. Now, how many times have you heard the saying, get out of your comfort zone? Stepping out of our comfort zone is the primary way in which we grow, but often we're afraid to take that first step. We tell ourselves all the reasons why we can't. Remember, our brain is a survival muscle. It wants to keep you safe. Keeping you safe means maybe not getting involved in any sort of change, not stepping out of our comfort zone, because that might be a bit scary. But remember, for you to reach your full potential, everything that you want, everything that you can be is just outside of your comfort zone. So how do we do it? Tip number 1 then, identify how stepping out of your comfort zone will benefit you. I want you to write down all of the reasons why it will make a difference. All of the reasons why you want to, you need to step out of your comfort zone. So associate yourself with that why. Stay positive on this one, really important. Tip number 2, next create a plan. Break it down into baby steps so it feels more achievable for you to step out into your stretch zone where we grow. That's where we grow. Creating a step-by-step approach that you can follow really makes a difference. It feels more achievable, and actually what happens is we do start to do the next tip, which is take action. So every day, I want you to challenge yourself to move forward. That means doing something every day that takes you forward into your stretch zone. Because as I said before, this is where we grow, and ultimately, your comfort zone starts to get larger. We start to feel a little bit more comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. We develop more skills. We grow our self-esteem. We grow and feel confident every day. And those 3 steps will definitely keep you out of any panic zone, because we start to feel comfortable and achievable with moving step by step forward. So identify how and why it will benefit you, create a plan and take action. I look forward to hearing all about you stepping forward into a brand new you and really embracing the stretch zone. That's all from me for this week. Back to you, Audrey.
Thank you, Sharon. Yes, we have come to the end of the show, but this week, if you are looking for one way that you can start practicing getting into that stretch zone, Reverend Mandy Marriott of the Duston Parish is bringing you her thought for the day on how to pay it forward. So we'll leave you with Mandy, but from Sharon and myself, have a positive week, look after yourself, look after your community, look after your environment, and tune in again next week. Bye for now.
Bye.
Hello again. Today I'm reflecting a little bit about our attitudes and the choices we make in our lives. I'm aware of a group in our area which was set up last year called Random Acts of Kindness, and it supports and encourages people to do just that, to carry out random acts of kindness to benefit others. The idea of this group is to inspire you to make a small difference by undertaking a random act of kindness. And if enough of us do that, then we can make a great big difference in our community. The idea is to create a sense of community, a way of looking outward rather than inward to ourselves all the time. Well, what might you do? Well, you might leave a gift of a plant or a small bunch of flowers on a neighbour's doorstep. You might pay for a coffee for the next person in the drive-through. You might buy a gift card and pop it through someone's door. I wonder, what random act of kindness could you do? Get your imagination working. You can be as imaginative as you like. But you know, as well as actually doing things like that, there are very simple ways to be kind too. What about a smile? It doesn't cost anything, and it is so good to smile, because a smile can really brighten someone's day. How sad it can be then when we or others are sometimes less friendly and can give the cold shoulder to those we meet. It appears then as if we just don't have time for them, and really they don't matter. You know, I once had a conversation with a homeless person in Leeds, and she was saying to me that the worst thing was the way that people walk past, almost as if she is invisible. People avoid her, not looking at her, not smiling at her. And it made her feel unwanted, unloved, uncared for. And that was just so sad. Where does this expression come from, to give someone the cold shoulder? Well, it appears to go back to the Middle Ages. And in those days, it was expected that a knight would always give a great welcome to a fellow knight who came to visit. Indeed, not only was he expected to give him a great welcome, but to give him board and lodgings with the finest food and drink he could provide. And he was expected to do this for as long as the visiting knight came to stay. Well, sometimes a visiting knight would play rather on this hospitality and took advantage of the custom and would overstay his welcome. And when this happened, the host would instruct his kitchen to no longer serve the finest food and wine, but to offer in place a cold shoulder of mutton, which was regarded at the time as meat fit only for the servants. And when a visiting knight therefore was served with that cold shoulder of mutton, he knew his time had come to leave. So the expression came into our language, and there it remains as a term for when we don't want to give people our time and attention. You know, one person who never gave the cold shoulder was Jesus Christ. And we read in the Bible that people came to him day and night, and he never turned anyone away. He was always in demand. There were always people who were ill, people who were anxious, people who wanted their questions answered, who came to him. In fact, great crowds often followed him, demanding his attention. And Jesus always had time for them. And the same is true today. Jesus always has time for us. He longs to welcome us and for us to share our thoughts, our questions, our feelings, our worries, our joys with him. His hospitality never ends. In the Gospel of St. John, chapter 6, verse 37, Jesus says, "I will never turn away anyone who comes to me." Well, let's remember those words for ourselves, but also let's keep a welcome in our hearts for those we meet, and a smile too. Bye for now.